Hey friends, welcome back. If you love easy, delicious meals that practically cook themselves, today, this video is your video. I've got 3 crock pot recipes that are perfect for busy days. Stick around to the end because the last recipe, it's a crock pot breakfast that's gonna make your morning so much easier. You do not wanna miss it. Tonight for dinner, we are going to make a crock pot tortellini. This is something we've made before, but we kind of change up the recipe almost every time we make it. And tonight we're doing it yet again. So let's make it this way. I just got home from the park with my kids. We met some other families there and we just need to get dinner in the crock pot. And then tonight we have volleyball. It's one of those nights, it's just, there's all the things during the day. I'm also gonna be doing a lot of baking this afternoon. So let's get this cooked up and ready to go. I have 1 pound of mild Italian pork sausage here. Now, if you have one of those really cool crock pots where you can saute in them, then you can just saute up the pork sausage in your crock pot. I'm gonna actually take this over to the stovetop because mine is ancient and it doesn't do that. So we're gonna cook it up first, then bring it over and put it into our crock pot. So pretty simple step here that I'm sure requires almost no explanation. We're just gonna brown up this Italian sausage. This is a mild, by the way, but feel free to use a medium or a hot if you prefer heat in your recipes. I actually think it would be really, really good that way, but for the kids' sake, we're gonna go with mild. All right, let me give this a minute over here to start cooking up. Part of this recipe is diced tomatoes and like a can of diced tomatoes. My son made a comment on these canned tomatoes last time we used them, and I tend to agree. The chunks of tomato that are in here are very large. I bought a pretty large pack at Sam's Club. Had I known that, I definitely would have gone with the petite diced tomatoes, but since we have these, we definitely need to use them. I'm gonna throw this in the blender for like 3 seconds and just chop up the tomatoes a little bit more, just because I actually agree with him. I think that they were too large as well. I'm also not gonna drain them. Well, should I? No, we don't need to drain them. You could do this in a food processor as well. That's it. That's all I'm doing. Literally that simple. While the sausage is over there cooking, let's go ahead and start to gather all of our other ingredients that we're gonna need for this recipe. All right, tomato sauce. All right, we need some bone broth and heavy cream, forgot about that. The cheese tortellini is gonna be later. I think this is basically everything we need for right now. Let me check on this sausage. All right, this is coming along. So the very first time that I made this recipe, my kids raved about this. And the funny thing is, I could not taste it because I had what other people had was it 2020? They were raving about how delicious it was at dinner. All right, this is about done. I actually think this is good enough, honestly, because it is gonna be in the crock pot for a couple of hours. There's actually not a lot of grease in here, so I can appreciate that. We don't even really need to drain this off, which is really helpful. So let's take this over to the crock pot and put it right in there. I just realized I got out heavy cream and we don't need that till later. All right, let's take the can of diced tomatoes that I mean, it took seconds, but you know, we made it a lot smaller. It's more like crushed tomatoes, honestly, at this point. 1 can of tomato sauce, put the whole thing in there. About 1 cup of broth. You can use chicken broth if that's your preference. That's about a cup. I'm using my larger crock pot tonight because what I've noticed in the past is that when I make this and I make it in the smaller crock pot, by the time I add the tortellini, it's like almost to the top and it's really hard to stir. So I'm using the larger one just to prevent any stirring issues. Okay, I'm gonna add basil, thyme, and oregano. So this is some basil. Let's do maybe like a half teaspoon, about a half teaspoon of thyme as well. You can really go up to a teaspoon on these, it's totally fine. And then some oregano, about the same, half to a full teaspoon of oregano. Personally, I do think that this needs a little bit of salt. Historically, we have noticed that. So I would add maybe a half teaspoon or so, just depending on how much you prefer. Also feel free to add pepper. I'm going to add 2 cloves of minced garlic. And this, obviously you can use the pre-minced garlic. I used it for years. We just bought garlic in bulk, and so this makes it really easy. Okay, let's just mix all this together. And I'm gonna let this cook for a couple of hours. We're just doing low. I don't really think this recipe needs high. I mean, technically, if you follow a recipe that you find from the internet for this, it's gonna tell you to cook on low for 5 to 6 hours or on high for 3 to 4 hours. What we've found is that generally it doesn't take that much time. Everything in this is already cooked, so it's really just a reheat of the process. Now, it's perfectly fine to cook that long. So if you're heading out to work and you wanna throw this in the crock pot before you leave and just set it on low, it'll be fine. It's not gonna bother anything. But if you need a quick crock pot meal, you can actually make this one a pretty quick one too. So I'm probably gonna do about 2 hours on low, then we'll come back in, we're gonna add tortellini, we're gonna add some heavy cream, we're gonna add some spinach. The dog is barking, which means Amazon is here or somebody is here. But yeah, this just about 2 hours on low is really all you need. All right, friends, this has actually been in the crock pot for about 3 hours. Time got away from me, which is fine because this recipe can handle it. So instead of spinach, I am using this tatsoi from my garden. So we're just throwing in, I'm just gonna do, I don't know, it's like a handful or two, really. I'm breaking it up into little pieces. You don't have to add any green at all. So if you're not a fan, you're like, meh, I think it looked better before that, that's totally fine. And I was gonna cut it, but then I just decided, well, we'll just tear it apart. I don't really prefer the stems, so I'm taking those off. This tatsoi is unique to my garden because it actually was one of the starter plants. So when I very first got the garden, it was one of the plants that I planted. And so one thing about the garden is that, you know, over time you kind of have to refresh the plants, and you get credits if you do the subscription plan to get new plants and stuff because some of them need to be refreshed occasionally. This one, my jalapenos and my bell peppers are original. Good stuff right there. All right, let's clean this up. Okay, we mix that in, and that's just gonna kind of wilt. I'm gonna add in some heavy cream, about a cup. We have also done this where we add in cream cheese. So you can add cream cheese instead, or honestly, you can eat it just like this if you wanna cut down the fat content and not add the cream at all. Okay, so about a cup. Just gonna add a touch more. I also have this package of 5 cheese tortellini. We get this in a 2-pack at Sam's Club, and it's again one of those things that we just always have on hand because I can throw together a really quick dinner with this. It's not obviously gonna be as good as if you're making it homemade, but it is a really great quick dinner option or things like this for sure. And we like it, we think it's good. Okay, all of that can go in there. And that's just gonna soften up. It usually takes about 30 minutes and then this will be done. You'll be ready to eat. So good. Now at this point, one thing, now these are frozen still, so because they're frozen, I might not do this quite yet, but I do like to take my lid and set it off to the side just a little bit so that some of the water can evaporate out. Since these are frozen, I am going to put the lid all the way back on just to make sure that they get fully and completely cooked.
This is my kind of meal. Hearty, cheese-stuffed pasta. You cannot go wrong with tortellini.
So true.
Oh man, I'm so hungry.
We are very hungry.
It's like midnight, and we eat usually at like 5 or 5:30.
It's 7:15, and so let me tell you, our daughter started playing volleyball, and like for an actual team, and it has rocked our world.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
It is fun, but it's the later dinners, man, we are really not adjusting well to this whole thing. So tortellini, we've had this recipe multiple times. I did change it up just a little bit. I told them that the first time we had it is when I was sick and couldn't taste anything. And you guys were all talking about how good it was.
That's right.
And then like for months they were asking me to make it again. So anyway, super good, y'all. Super, super good.
It's just got all the elements that you want. Protein inside pasta, a little bit of kick to it, the smallest amount of green. Maybe it's got all the elements that a man wants.
Yeah.
Tiny bit of green, a lot of meat, a lot of cheese.
And it's a
sauce.
Really tasty sauce.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really tasty. Like I said, we've done this with cream cheese. We've done this without anything like that. And we've done this with heavy cream. So
what'd you do today?
Heavy cream.
Okay.
We've actually taken this to the mountains before and made it a 3-ingredient meal. It's very, very simple because we've done the Italian sausage, the tortellini, and a pre-made spaghetti sauce kind of stuff. And it's super easy to make because we just don't want to take a bunch of things with us. When you make it with this, it is a little bit better when you make it all like this, but it's such an easy one, y'all. So good. Okay, it's 8:26. Normally I leave for church around 8:15, so we're running a few minutes behind. This is one of those crock pot recipes when you need to throw a crock pot recipe and just dump everything in really fast, put it into the insert and just walk away. This is the one for you. It's so easy. I can put this together in under 5 minutes, okay? So we're just gonna do that. We're gonna throw everything in here. Now I wanna tell you, if you wanna make it a little bit extra, get yourself a poblano pepper or a jalapeno and an onion and dice it up really well. Saute it over on your stovetop in a little bit of butter or oil and add that in here too. Like I said, I need to get on the move immediately, so we're gonna skip that portion of this. I've got some chicken thighs here. You can do this with chicken thighs or chicken breasts, whichever one you prefer is completely fine. You guys know we're a thigh family, so we usually will go for that. Also, I'm just gonna put them right here into the bottom of my crock pot. We're gonna shred them later, so I can actually worry about cutting off the fat right before we're ready to eat this. I don't need to do that right now. Also, I know I've said it here before, but in case you're new, we often have a crock pot meal on Sundays because on Sundays I can throw everything in before we head out for church, and when we get back it's ready to go. So simple and convenient for Sundays. Now this specific one is not my husband's favorite because he does not love corn inside of recipes. He actually really loves corn, but just not in a recipe. He's gonna be fine. He'll eat it, he'll enjoy it, but it's just not his favorite to add that in. But as with anything, just leave out the stuff that you don't love and add in things that you do. Okay, so I'm actually going to do my spices next. I wanna kind of coat the chicken in these spices. Did you hear me say that there's corn in it?
I heard you.
We have cumin here. I need about a tablespoon of cumin. And honestly, again, this is one of those recipes where you just throw in whatever amount you think looks good. We also need about a tablespoon of chili powder. I like a lot of chili powder in this one because it really enhances the flavor. About 2 teaspoons of paprika. Now I didn't add onion, so we're gonna add some onion powder, probably a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half. And then same with the garlic powder. Now if you want a little bit of extra heat, add in a touch of cayenne, maybe a half teaspoon or so. It doesn't need to be too much. And then salt. For mine, I'm adding a little bit of extra salt because we are using bone broth, which is not quite as salty as chicken broth. I've got a can of black beans. We are going to drain and rinse these. We are adding in a can of diced tomatoes, and I'm also going to be adding in a can of diced green chilies, and we are not draining these. We're not rinsing them. Now, if you want, you can just get a can of Rotel or something like that. I happen to already have these, so that's why we're going to go with those. Let's add in our corn. I'm only gonna be adding in about half of this bag just because the whole bag would be a little too much just based on what we're making. Now, the full recipe calls for 4 cups of broth. We only used 1 pound of chicken versus 2 pounds of chicken. Ours is gonna be a little more vegetable-y, I guess you could say. I'm gonna start with 3 cups, maybe 2. We're gonna cover it. We're just gonna cover it, see what it looks like. So this whole thing would be 4 cups, but we're not gonna use 4 cups. We just don't need 4. That's probably 2.5 cups, right around what I thought I was gonna be using, 2.5 to 3 cups. I just wanna cover everything in this, and then I'm gonna add in 1 bay leaf. Now you would cook this on high for about 3 hours or low for about 6 hours. Let's see, I think I'm gonna do high, just to be sure. So we'll get this started, and then after church, we will shred up the chicken and have our toppings ready so that we can eat our lunch. All right, we're home from church. This has been cooking for about 4.5 hours or so. Let's take the chicken out because we need to shred it and then put it back in. Also, I'm gonna take the bay leaf out because it's right here on top, and that, we're not gonna eat that. We should just be able to shred this with 2 forks very easily, and I am able to. And then I'm gonna put it right back into the crock pot. I am kind of watching for the little fatty pieces because we don't want those in there. We're just gonna take those out. As I'm shredding up this chicken, I'm curious, what do you guys usually do for Sunday afternoon lunch? I know growing up a lot of times, my mom would do a roast. That was pretty common, but then we would get to church and there would be a group of people that would inevitably be going out to eat and invite us. And so a lot of times we ended up going out to eat. We don't go out to eat a lot after church on Sundays, but we actually will do the Sunday evening. We go out, or we'll order pizza or something like that on Sunday evenings. But I'm just curious, what's your Sunday afternoon go-to? How does that usually work for you and your family? Okay, you can see all the good stuff in here. I'm definitely glad that I did not use 4 cups of broth, but if you're using 2 pounds of chicken, I could see where you would want more of that broth. We're gonna put this into bowls, and the cool thing about this, there's so many different toppings. You can do sour cream, avocado, tortilla strips, cheese, so many different topping options. I'm gonna go ahead and cut up an avocado because I think this will be really good in here. Oh, cilantro is a good one on here, but we love the different toppings that you can put on this too. All right, friends, we're ready to eat. Let's give this a try. They're out playing basketball and she wants to be out there. What you doing? Come here. Come on. What you doing? All right, let's get a bite. That has really good flavor. Very good. This is one, like I said, throw everything into the crock pot. Excuse me. Throw everything into the crock pot and it's ready to go in the afternoon. I mean, it takes minimal effort. I love meals like that, especially on a Sunday where we've gone to church. I don't know if I've said this here before, but we are a set up, tear down church at the moment. So we're pretty exhausted by the time we get home in the afternoon. So I love having something like this ready and available, something with fantastic flavor that's gonna hold us over to the evening. What are you doing? One thing I love being able to do is not just use my crock pot when it comes to making dinner, but did you know it makes a fantastic breakfast? We're gonna make a banana walnut French toast casserole kind of thing. The first thing I need to do, I've already prepped a lot of my ingredients, but I wanna get my bananas chopped up because I actually prefer this recipe if you layer the bananas a little bit. And I'll kind of explain what that means when we get to it. We've got, if you have one of those really cool little tools where you just put the banana into the tool and it slices it up for you, you can use that, but you can also throw some on your counter like I do. They don't have to be perfect by any means. Now to keep these from browning, we're going to add a little bit of lemon juice. So let me just pour here onto my spoon. And then drizzle and just toss in that lemon juice. And this will help that whole browning process slow down. This part is done. Everything else is pretty much prepped. So let me just set this to the side and we're gonna start cutting our baguette. Now this is a couple days old. I wanted it to be a couple days old for this recipe. The ends are actually pretty hard, so I'm probably gonna cut those off. Goodness, the ends are actually pretty hard, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut those off. As I'm cutting, I'm just dropping it into the crock pot. And then we're gonna do a bit of a layering. Now this may be easier to do if, like I said, mine is probably 1 day older than what I would prefer the bread to be. I don't like using fresh bread for a casserole like this. I don't know, I feel like it gets mushy. Like if it's a little bit more stale, it keeps some of its texture, but it's up to you. Now, this is the layering that I was talking about. So I'm just gonna take a few of the bananas, maybe a little less than half, and just kind of add them to this bottom layer that we've already created, just so it's not bananas all at the top, but you get a little bit of a mixture of bananas. Now, I've got 5 more bananas over there, so if I feel like it's not gonna be banana-y enough, we'll add more. Now let's cut the rest of the bread, and same process. I've got my next layer of baguette. I've got some stuff already portioned out here. So we have 4 eggs that I've already cracked open. This is about a tablespoon of sugar. Go ahead and add in that sugar. You can use any kind of sugar you prefer, honestly. We've got a teaspoon of cinnamon, and I like to add in some milk. This is about 3/4 a cup of milk. You can add in nutmeg, whatever your favorite flavors are. I personally, oh, I forgot it. Let me get it. My preference is to add a touch of, come on. What is happening? Almond extract, there we go. That's like maybe a half teaspoon. It's probably under that. Now, whisk that together. My dog is staring at the back window, or the back door. Even though my daughter is outside, she still wants to come in. Okay, now let's pour the egg mixture all over the top. I'm trying to get it all around, making sure that the pieces all get soaked in the mixture. Now, I did spray this before I put everything in here. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. Top with the rest of the bananas, just all over. This is about a tablespoon of coconut oil. We're gonna drizzle with coconut oil all over the top here. Now, just for looks, I'm gonna take a little bit more of that cinnamon and just ever so slightly sprinkle the top. Now, ideally, I would have pecans or even more walnuts than what I have. I thought we had an entire bag, but apparently people have been snacking on them, which is no surprise here. Let's just add what we have to the top. Oh, this will be all right. It's not a lot, but it's enough. I'm gonna cook this on low for about 3 to 4 hours. We'll check it and see how it goes. I mean, it smells delicious already. If you need a delicious and easy breakfast to have on hand, this banana walnut French toast was very good. Very, very good. We made sausage to serve on the side. So delicious. It came together really quickly. I didn't have to babysit it or do anything like that. If you're having people over, I think this is a great option. If you just want to have breakfast ready for yourself or your kids in the morning before school, during the summer, I mean, it's literally a good option no matter what, and it's a really inexpensive casserole as well. Our verse today comes from John 16:33. I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Check out the one that I have listed right here above. Such good recipes in this one. Head over there and watch that before you exit YouTube. You won't regret it. Have a great week.